3 here. Testing 1, 2. Test 1, 2, 1, 2, test 1, 2. Did we unplug the monitors?
It might have been unplugged because we were looking for that.
1,
second
2.
thing.
Yeah, I can see it there on the amplifier, so that's it. Yeah, the monitor itself isn't plugged into the jack, but it was, I could see it there on the amplifier that was leaving. Yeah, plug into a monitor to the second jack.
It's like B.
2. You got the first 22 channels are all the same. 21 channels, 20 channels it looks like on this one. You have the gain control, low cut, EQ, the auxiliary sends, which we've kind of touched up on. But now 1 is being used for monitors. 6 is being used for post-fade recording. The other 4 aren't going anywhere right now. They're not plugged into anything on the main output jacks. The low cut filter at the top, for vocal type microphones, I would have it engaged on any microphone people are talking or singing into. Some instruments, acoustic guitar possibly, sometimes a keyboard, turning that on helps filter out some of the low frequency rumble that you get from a mic, holding a mic real close. It just helps clean it up. With this one mic on, test 1, 2, test 1, 2, 1, 2. You can tell a little bit of a difference. It filters out some of the sub-low, but with one mic on, it's not too critical maybe. If you have 4 or 5 vocal mics on and have those all turned off, each mic contributes a little bit more to the low frequency, which keeps building up and building up. Having them on will prevent so much buildup happening on the low end. So vocal mics, lapel mics, the headset mics, all turned on. Choir mics, I would have it on those, even if you're using them for ambient pickup. Sometimes a keyboard, acoustic guitar, electric guitar. Drums and bass guitar, obviously, you don't want it turned on them. That's where you want a little bit low-end support from. These have 4-band EQ. Test 1, 2. Roughly the center is flat. You can tell it adds more of a higher mid. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Low mid, heavy frequencies. 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. And then the low end frequency 1, 2. High end test. My voice sounds a little bit better with some of the low end cut a little bit more, and maybe some of the high mids taken out. That will vary from voice to voice to voice, where the voice may have a particular higher end, upper mid-range quality that starts getting a little too out front, and you may want to pull some of the high mids out. If they're really into the mic or have a lower voice, you may want to cut a little more low end. Or likewise, if they're a thinner voice, you may want to leave the low end at flat, or maybe boost a touch of it, just to kind of help fill it in. And it does sound, running back and forth, it does sound different, because it's tough to do, but you'll tend to want to reference what you're hearing up here and adjust it for that location versus down on the floor where the people are at.
Right.
So you have to get your exercise and go up and down a few times, kind of get a audio frame of reference of what it sounds like on the floor, come back up here and say, okay, on the floor it sounded good, so that means what it sounds like now up here equals sounding decent on the floor. And it's tough to do because you just naturally want to make it sound like you want it to sound up here, but down on the floor you're maybe changing it too much. Like you may think, oh, it sounds a little dull, maybe flat, not enough top end up here, and you'll add some more to it. But doing that then on the floor, it would make it sound too bright then. And ironically, without speaker not pointed straight back here anymore, it made that situation worse because it's aimed to where the people are that need to hear, but not up to here where you also kind of need to hear at this point. The first 4 auxes are pre-fade, which means, like for the monitors, in the pre-fade position, 1, 2, you can see I got this turned clear down, and that didn't change the monitor level at all, which is the way you want monitors 99% of the time. You want them set to where the musician hears themselves like they want to, and then in the house mix, you do as you need to do. And every change you make here doesn't change what they're hearing, because it picks up the signal to the pre-fade auxes prior to this level change happening. 5 and 6, you can select pre or post. In pre, it does just like up here, the preset pre-fades. In post-fade, like it is for the recording, it will track every change you make with this. Turn it up, turn it down, it's going to do the same thing in the recording, so it'll keep the same balance to the recording as what you hear in the house mix. If you had that in the pre-fade, you make or post-fade to the monitors and make changes, their monitors could be going up and down as you're trying to sing along with it, and they're going to be looking up here going, making all these hand signals like you see them do.
I've done that.
And that will be somewhat alleviated, or quite a bit alleviated, because with the individual mixes, they can take each pod, which is back down the stage, and control their own mix into their earbuds. Almost, unless somebody is using the little wedges, singers, guest musicians that don't have an earbud mix system, the monitor mix will be irrelevant to anything going on the stage because they can do their own setup and mix with it. Something you could do if you find yourself not using a lot of the monitors that would help, especially people setting up close, you could take a couple of little PV speakers like you have, like plug in one on that side, plug in another one on that side, and use them for front fill auxiliary. So people setting up close that may be a little underneath the main coverage can pick up a little bit of the coverage from the front main stage speakers. And you could,
And you would suggest that with the PVs, not the Bose,
yeah,
because they're balanced correctly.
they're more balanced correctly, just plugging them in and going rather
Without
than without the processor. And to do that, if you find yourself needing to do that or want to, you could do it in the pre-fade position. It'll be, and you wouldn't need much. That's actually probably pretty loud when you're right down next to it. You wouldn't need much of it in there just to add a little bit of presence to them first couple rows of the seating. How far up do they seat? To the line there? Or?
I think they start at the red line.
The red line?
The back of the chair is on the red line.
Okay.
Yeah, we can probably.
Yeah, if they're closer, even then it would help a touch, having them, and they're pretty unobtrusive setting there. Having one like on each side, if the monitors aren't an issue for any of the musicians, I would use them as front fills. I usually do front fills quite a bit when I do live sound work if people are sitting somewhat close, just to add a little bit of close-up presence. If you use them for that, the pre-fade would be kind of the wrong position to have those in there, because you turn down vocal mic 1, they're off in the house, oh, that was good, and you could still hear all that talking. Then I would just take, and right over here, this gray line is the monitor line. Instead of plugged into aux 1, move it down to aux 5, which is already set for post-fade. And now it's off, and so we can hear the difference. I'll turn off the main speakers. And now as I turn it up, I also have to turn up the master. Now as I turn this up, it's turning up and down with the overall house mix. So when they're done, they turn off in the mains and in the front fills at the same time. So see 1, 2, it's turned off together. And then just moving that back to aux 1 if you need it in a true stage monitor musician type situation or setup. Test 1, 2. When you hit PFL, which stands for pre-fade listen, you can do just that. Hear a channel, any of the channels, any of the auxes, which would be helpful to listen to for the recording, any of the main subgroups, and it also gives you the level control. Like right now, you can see this microphone is routed to the headphones and to the master levels. And that gives you a level indication of where you can have it really loud or hardly any at all. And with a nominal input, you want it roughly 3/4-ish of the way. Just so it's hitting maybe 1 or 2 of the yellow LEDs is a good average, and there's a little bit of fudge room between, but that's the window of area you kind of want to shoot for. And that'll be the level set to where you get a good working level, roughly 3/4 of the way up on the fader. If you find yourself trying to get volume and like this, it's a good indication the gain control is way too low. Or likewise, if it's way up, then you're down here like this.
You're screaming those
You're
headphones.
deafening the poor guy in headphones. You're down here like this, getting level. You can kind of hear it kind of breaking, starting to break up quite a bit actually. but you're down here in this lower area just getting the level where you need. That's an indication that likewise you're too high in the PFL. Test 1, 2. And also when you're down low, you don't have near the resolution on the fader. Just like a quarter of an inch may give you 15, 20 dB of attenuation versus up in this area, almost an inch will give you that same range. So you get a more finer adjustment of your level where you want to set it at. For the routing, right now, all the channels, and it's tough to see, I'm not sure how it's shown up in the video. Right now, all the channels are assigned just directly to the left-right with that button depressed. And what that does is a signal from this channel is directly sent through the board to your main left-right outputs and into the system then. If you go to any of the subgrouping, which is set up for 1, 2, or 3, 4, then that channel can be routed to one of the 4 or all of the subgroups if need be. Typically, you just route it to one at a time. It looked like it was being used to do some distributed outputs through the subgroups, which is fine. That's another way you can do it. But for a little more flexibility, like in grouping microphones together, if you select, let's say, all the vocal microphones, you would depress like the 1, 2 button, for instance. Then using the pan control, if you pan to the left, it's routed strictly to subgroup 1. To the right sends you to subgroup 2. Same thing with 3 or 4. So if you would group together, let's say 3 or 4 of your lead vocal channels all on subgroup 1, then when you turn this up, you have full control of all your vocals just on one subgroup fader, and maybe all your instruments on another one. So you get your overall mix of the balance of the vocals. And then if you just need more vocals in general, you can kind of bump it up a little or pull it back. Same way with your instrument grouping, you could turn them up, turn them down. Rather than trying to get a bunch of fingers and doing this, once you get the overall balance set, you can just turn them up and down collectively with this one control.